Hey everyone, it's the Shoal Weekly Podcast. It's that time of the week again, and we're bringing you our coverage of the greatest show, man, an online film festival celebrating all things Academy Awards. I'm your host, Joe, and I'm with Ben and Charlie as always. How you doing, guys? You okay?
Yeah, man.
Ben, how you doing?
I'm absolutely splendid. I'm very excited about this week. We've got probably too much to talk about.
Yeah, we know you're excited. It took you about 10 minutes to shut up before we started recording. As always, to our listeners at home, do be sure to follow our socials for updates and news. Hit that notification bell, drop us a like or a follow. We really appreciate the support. We're going to be doing The Greatest Showman, as you probably know, all the way through to the end of April. And we are in the process of planning a live watch along of the 93rd Academy Awards. So stay tuned for that. There will definitely be news for that either by the end of this week or definitely at the start of next week. We've had a really packed viewing schedule this week. We had to cram in the entirety of the Lord of the Rings trilogy, also 2019's Parasite, which was the most recent Best Picture winner. So really excited to talk about that one. We also had a classic as well with Dustin Hoffman and Jon Voight, Midnight Cowboy, 1969. Great film. I managed to catch that this morning. Really enjoyed it. Really excited to talk about that too. And then something different as well, Citizen 4. If you're not familiar with that, viewers, listeners at home, it was the Best Picture winner 2014 for Best Documentary. And it's about the Edward Snowden NSA whistleblowing scandal. So that's also going to be really good to talk about. We really hope you were able to catch a few of these at home. If not, hopefully our discussion will persuade you to do so. But we have a lot to talk about today, so I say we just get straight into it. Have we been watching anything else this week before we start?
I've been a bit ill, so I've not had a chance to really delve into anything else. But what about you two?
I managed to watch The Other Woman, classic comedy from, actually not really classic, 2014, with I always forget the names, but Kate Hudson's in it, and not Kate Hudson. What's her name? Kate Upton. There we go. The guy from Game of Thrones. It was okay. It was largely forgettable, as you can probably tell by my lack of knowledge on it. But yeah, again, been pretty busy this week as well myself, and I know Charlie, you've been well. What about you, Ben?
We watched Ant-Man and the Wasp this week, which is really good. I quite like it. It's one of those ones which is kind of set like before Infinity War, but like after Infinity War. So it's quite good fun. It's Paul Rudd. Who doesn't love Paul Rudd, right? He's great.
The man just doesn't age. Everyone wants to know his secret. I mean, he's what, like 50, 55 now?
Dermatologists hate him.
Yeah. I can think of a lot of stars who are 55 who just do not look half as good as he does. He looks about 40. It is pretty incredible.
Yeah, 52. Yeah.
Yeah. He looks the same age as he did when he was in Friends, 25 years ago, which is insane.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Ant-Man and the Wasp, I've only ever seen it once, but I actually really enjoyed it when I did watch it. Obviously, it was more of a pass the time interlude between those epic Infinity War and Endgame films as well. So maybe it came out at the wrong time because I feel like a lot of people forget about it, but maybe it's worth another rewatch.
Yeah, definitely recommend it. It's great fun.
There is an ice cream truck outside. I don't know if you can hear that. It's making its rounds down the street.
Ding,
Hopefully
ding,
the mic
ding,
didn't
ding,
pick that up.
ding.
Get us a cornetto.
Get us a cornetto. Okay, so I reckon we just dive straight into it because this is going to be a really good podcast. So, Lord of the Rings trilogy, 2001 to 2003. The reason that I think we decided to do all three films, I mean, all three of them just absolutely sweeped it up at the Oscars. So, Lord of the Rings trilogy, 2001 to 2003. Obviously, 3 films in one day, it's a lot, but the reason we decided to do it all together is because all 3 films absolutely sweeped it up at the Oscars, the 74th, 75th, and 76th Academy Awards back at the start of the millennium. 31 nominations for the trilogy overall. 18 it took home, which, it's amazing.
Do you know
Highest.
what, though, thing about that is It still only counts as one.
Oh, there we go. I'm glad we got that out of the way.
I knew he was going to do that as well.
Yeah, me too. I don't know. I don't know why I doubted in my mind that wasn't going to happen. But yeah, obviously, it is the highest scoring Academy Award franchise in the ceremony's history. 18 Academy Awards for one franchise is fantastic. Just some notable ones, obviously, Best Picture, visual effects, of course, supporting actor, director, adapted screenplay. It took home all of them. In 2002, The Fellowship of the Ring was up against A Beautiful Mind and Moulin Rouge. And then in 2003, The Two Towers was up against Chicago, Gangs of New York, The Pianist, all great films. And then 2004 was the one in which The Return of the King won Best Picture, and it was up against Lost in Translation, Master and Commander, Mystic River, and Seabiscuit as well.
Lost in Translation is incredible.
It is, yeah.
It's quite a good, to win, it's quite a good year.
Mm-hmm.
Master and Commander is another one of my favorite Russell Crowe films because I love it.
You're a fanboy for those early 2000s Russell Crowe flicks, aren't you?
Yeah,
He loves it.
It just reminded me of I grew up watching. Did either of you watch Hornblower? It was kind of like a sharp but on the sea kind of thing.
No.
Oh right, great series. About the Napoleonic Wars, but just the naval side of it, rather than kind of on land. Anyway, it just reminded me of that. It's just kind of the Royal Navy. All the kind of fully rigged ships, and yeah, it's just really cool.
I know you and I have been excited to play some Sea of Thieves when we get the chance to. Ben and I recently built his custom PC over the Easter weekend, so that was really fun to do. And I know as soon as we get on Sea of Thieves, he's just going to be quoting Master and Commander quotes, or Pirates of the Caribbean ones as well. But yeah, anyway, so yeah, Lord of the Rings trilogy. If you don't know it, where have you been? It's arguably one of the greatest tales ever told.
Go watch it right now.
Go watch it right now. 13 hours for the extended edition.
It's the extended edition.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that when I always turn to Lord of the Rings, I always watch the extended editions. But then it's important to remember that it was the theatrical ones that took home the Oscars. And I think, when you look at the extended editions, it's not just like any run-of-the-mill director's cut with an extra 15 minutes shaved here or there, or things added in, deleted scenes put back in. These are really, really extended editions. I mean, look at the Return of the King. Return of the King clocks in at 3 hours and 15 minutes, something like that for the theatrical
one. Which is long
one.
already, isn't it?
Which is really long. And then if you go all out and go for the extended edition, you're looking to be sitting down 4.5 hours to watch that one. I think I know one person who would have really liked that, and that was probably Zack Snyder.
I was going to say, after watching Justice League, that sounds like a walk in the park, really.
Zack Snyder just starts heavy breathing when he starts watching Return of the King. And he's like, you know what this needs? It needs more slow motion. It needs some chapter headings. But yeah, as I said, it's important to remember that the original Lord of the Rings trilogy, the theatrical ones, are the ones that took home those Academy Awards. Which I think, when you look at how they won adapted screenplays as well, I think that's really great, because I would say they're some of the most faithful cinematic adaptations of literature. There's not a lot that is left out from the book, save for
Tom Bombadil.
Yeah, Tom Bombadil, and then I know the Scourging of the Shire in Return of the King, where the hobbits have to defend against the remnant of Saruman and Grima Wormtongue.
You sort of see that with the
when
he looks into the it's called? It's the bowl, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh God, Lothlorien, is it?
Yeah, when they're in Lothlorien and look into the magical water bowl. We'll just call it that. Galadriel makes Frodo look into that.
That's what Tolkien called it. So
yeah.
No, you know what? I've never actually watched the extended editions.
Wow.
Why?
Why?
It's just never got round to it. It's never been on my radar. But I know
it should be.
Yeah, it will be. Don't worry, I am going to watch them at some point. But I mean, it's interesting though, because like you said, the theatrical versions won, and I remember them quite fondly. And it's quite amazing to see. They're the ones that won, like you said. But I think it's interesting because when you say it's quite, I think the whole reason why we did the whole three of them together is because as a franchise they're so successful. Apart from Avatar, in about 3 years when that
Oh, here we
wins,
go.
when that wins,
you have to shoehorn it in
something like
every
that.
single time, don't you?
My realistic point is I don't think there's any other franchises that really have been that award successful. I mean, Avengers definitely doesn't win Oscars.
Yeah, I was really surprised. I was looking at a list of the most awarded franchises in Academy Award history. Obviously, Lord of the Rings is at the top, and I think Star Wars is closely behind with like 7 or something like that. But again, they're just for the original trilogy. And I was surprised the MCU's only ever won 1 Academy Award for Black Panther, which is insane thinking about how many films that's been. But yeah, no. So what I thought I would do, because I know, and behind the scenes, we haven't had enough time to watch the entire trilogy this week. We're busy guys, and we do this as a bit of a hobby. So, rabbit in the headlights moment. I've got a bit of a fun Lord of the Rings quiz for you two, if you're ready for that.
Hey,
I'm gonna trash you, Ben. Let's go.
So there are some very easy questions, and there are some trick ones. Do you have some extended Lord of the Rings Tolkien knowledge?
Do we have to have buzzers?
Nah. What we're gonna do? There's 16 questions.
Oh, do I not get a custom sound? I just want to go.
Can we not have a custom buzzer sound?
I feel like no, I don't trust you guys. I don't trust you guys enough to make that clean sounding. But no, here are the rules. Okay, so there are 16 questions, 8 points up for grabs. I'm going to alternate and ask a question for each of you.
Can we steal if they get it wrong?
Yes, that's a very good point. Let's do that. So 8 points up for grabs, possibly with more. Charlie, you're going to start us off here. So, question 1: when Frodo and the other hobbits first meet Aragorn, what name does he go by?
Strider.
Oh, fucking hell. Well, he's straight in there.
Oh,
There we go.
I forgot there was options. I'm not going to lie.
No, that's okay. If you know it, just go straight into it. Ben, to open the gate of Moria, Gandalf says the Elvish word for enter, friend, dwarf, or open.
I'm going to go with you shall not pass. It's not the correct answer on this one.
It's not, I'm afraid. Charlie, do you want to buzz in?
No. I'm just going to give. I've got to guess.
Okay, all right.
We're going to go with D. Open.
I'm afraid that's not correct. Chaz?
Friend.
There we go. I think it's Mello that he says to open up the gate in Elvish.
Wow, that's knowledge. If you just said it, if you wanted me to answer it in Elvish, I was never going to get it.
Yeah, there we go. You're the real Tolkien nerd now. Question 3. Going over to Charlie for this one. At the beginning of the Fellowship of the Ring, Bilbo is celebrating his birthday, but how old is he?
111.
Wow, that's amazing. You are on this. You are absolutely
my
on this.
111th birthday.
Yeah, I don't know half as well as I should like, and I like less than half of you half as well as you deserve.
Yeah, exactly.
Classic quote there. Okay, Ben. Whose voice is the first voice we hear narrating in The Lord of the Rings, The Fellowship of the Ring?
That's a good one.
Is it Goldberry? Is it Eowyn? Is it Arwen? Or is it Galadriel?
Let's go with B.
Did you say B?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, that is incorrect. Charlie, do you want to have a go?
Is it Galadriel?
It is Galadriel. There we go. Oh, 4-0. Ben. Oh, all right.
I just remembered Gandalf starting the voicing. I can't remember anyone else. Oh, is this the flashback where they're like
she does the whole thing about the War of the Rings.
Okay, Charlie. John Rhys Davies, who portrays Gimli, also portrays which character in voice acting? Is it Sauron? Is it the mouth of Sauron? Is it the Uruk-hai Lurtz? Or is it Treebeard?
Oh, jeez. I don't actually know that. I'm going to guess at the mouth of Sauron.
Ben, do you want to have a guess?
Let's go with Treebeard.
That is correct. Treebeard. First point for Ben there. Yeah, John Rhys Davies, he provides the voice for Treebeard as well as playing Gimli very well.
I suppose that Mouth of Sauron is in the theatricals, is he? So
Yeah,
True.
absolutely. Here we go. Okay, so Ben, Aragorn is the descendant of which noble race of men? Is it A, the Gondorians? Is it B, the Southrons? Is it C, the Andorians? Or is it D, the Numenorians?
I'm gonna go with A, the Gondorians, because isn't he the king of Gondor at the end?
See, it's a bit of a trick question there. I can't accept that answer, Chaz.
Numenorians.
Numenorians. See, bit of a trivia here for you. Aragorn is the heir to the throne of Gondor, but all Gondorian men descend from Numenor, which is an island in the middle of the sea during the Second Age of
Hang
Middle
on a
Earth.
second. Hang on. So hang on. So actually, Gondorian isn't. Hang on.
It's not a
Whoa,
thing.
whoa, whoa,
Yeah.
whoa, whoa.
Gondorians isn't a thing.
Ah,
They're
this
just
is
trick question.
living Gondor sort of thing.
Yeah.
cool.
So there we go. And then Southrons are actually the race that you see in the Two Towers. You know, the ones with the like the Southrons and Easterlings.
They
they're
got
Oh,
the
like
ones
the
on,
ones
like,
with the elephants.
Yeah, yeah. And then the Andorians, I just made that up because there's a realm called Andor. So there we go.
Do you know what?
Yeah.
If you hadn't said that, I'd have just assumed that was some rogue race from the Silmarillion.
There we go. Okay, Chaz. How are Merry and Pippin related? Are they brothers? Are they cousins? Are they first cousins? Or are they not related?
Oh, they're. I don't know if there's something like first cousins once removed on my father's side. I think they're cousins.
Cousins? Is that what you're saying? Or first
Yeah.
cousins?
Was first cousins an option?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, first cousins.
Okay, correct.
Is that, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm buzzing with that.
Ben, who is the only star in the whole trilogy to have met J.R.R. Tolkien in real life? Is it Ian McKellen, who plays Gandalf? Is it Ian Holm, who plays Bilbo? Is it Bernard Hill? Or is it Christopher Lee, who plays Saruman?
I'm going to go with Christopher Lee on that one.
Correct.
That's a shout, yeah.
Yeah, that's very correct. Christopher
He's
Lee was
old.
a huge fan of Tolkien. Yeah, sadly, he's no longer with us. Amazing actor, but fun fact about Christopher Lee: he read The Lord of the Rings every single year until he died.
Wow.
And
Well,
it was his favorite
I
thing.
was going to get the reason why I guess is because obviously Christopher Lee was, quite famously he was quite active in World War II, wasn't he? And Lord of the Rings first, or was it Hobbit, came out just before World War II started. He was basically like an adult when the book started coming out for originally, wasn't he? So
yeah, absolutely.
Guesswork
Absolutely.
there.
Charlie, excluding the Witch King of Angmar, how many Nazgul are there?
Excluding him.
Excluding the Witch King of Angmar.
8.
That is correct. Well done.
Boom. It's just feeding my Tolkien ego. I love
There
it.
we go. Ben, question 10. Which of the following is not one of Gandalf's nicknames? Is it A, Greyheim? Is it B, the Flame of Undune? Is it C, Alorin? Or is it D, Mithrandir? You can take a wild guess at that one. I'd say that's one of the hardest questions.
Cheers, mate. Let's go with whatever the hell the third one was.
Alorin,
Yeah.
C. Mm-hmm. I'm afraid that's incorrect. Charlie, do you want to have a wild guess at that one?
I know it's not the last one. What was the second one?
The Flame of Undune.
And the first one?
Mm-hmm.
What was the first one?
Greyheim.
I think it's the second one.
The Flame of Undune?
Yeah.
Correct. So Gandalf utters when he's fighting with the Balrog, saying that he is the wielder of the Flame of Undune. But Greyheim is his sort of common nickname with like some of the halflings and like the lesser folk of Middle Earth. Mithrandir is actually his elvish name. That's what the elves call him.
Doesn't Galadriel call him that?
Yeah, and also the Gondorians call him that as well. What the men, the men of Gondor. And then, fun fact: C. Alorin. I didn't make that up. That's actually his real name. His name given to him by God or Eru Ilúvatar.
Right.
Gandalf's essentially an angel in the extended legendarium of Tolkien, and that's his angel name. So Alorin. Okay, so I believe it's Charlie next, isn't it? Question 11. The shards of the sword Narsil, which defeated Sauron during the Second Age, are reforged by the elves for Aragorn into what new sword? Is it Orkist, Anduril, Glamdring or Narsil II?
It's definitely not that one. If it's that one, I'm going to be mad.
Yeah.
No, I think it's the first one.
Orchist?
Yeah.
I'm afraid that's incorrect. Ben, do you want to take a guess?
Yeah, was it C?
No,
Glamdring.
that's the name of Gandalf's sword.
Oh,
So
I
both
knew
of
I
you get that
recognised
wrong.
one.
Yeah,
Son of a-
Glamdring is Gandalf's sword. It was Anduril, I think it's something like the Flame of the West or something like that, when Elrond gifts him the sword in the third film. Okay.
That's knowledge, that though. That's like specific.
Yeah.
That's mad.
Oh, I could go to town. Ben, question 12. Which of the 3 elven rings of power does Galadriel wield? Does she wield Vilya, the ring of air, Nenya, the ring of water, Narya, the ring of fire, or Quenya, the ring of earth?
Oh my god. I'm gonna go with the Ring of Water because
That is
she
correct.
does
That's a
that river
great
thing.
guess.
She does it in the river. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. Oh yes. There we
That's
go.
amazing. D, Quenya is actually, I threw that one in there to throw people off. Quenya is actually the language that the High Elves speak.
Yeah, I knew
So
there was
there's no
something
such
fishy
thing
about
as
that one.
that. Yeah.
I definitely knew that wasn't a ring, you know.
Okay, Charlie, I'm hoping you'll get this one. It's
good.
page 1 of the book. Page 1, okay? How many rings of power were created by Sauron and his craftsman Celebrimbor during the Second Age? How many rings did they make?
So there's 9 for men,
Mm-hmm.
3 for elves,
Mm-hmm.
and 7 for dwarfs, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Is there any more?
I'm not gonna say.
Oh god. No, I think that's it.
Hang on. Isn't
what's
there
your
like the
total?
other main ring, the one that's invisible?
Excuse me, Ben.
shit.
Excuse me, Ben.
Shit. Oh, cheers, Ben.
No, he'd already finished his answer. So my answer to steal it from
Oh.
Charlie is everything he said plus 1.
Which is, do some quick maths.
9 plus 3
Yeah.
plus 7. 10, 19, 20 rings. Yeah.
I think Ben can steal that one from you, Chaz.
Yeah.
20.
Fuck off with the wrong ring.
It's the one ring to rule them all.
As if you forgot about that.
I know, it's literally in the title.
Yeah. Ben, so in the Fellowship of the Ring in Moria, which dwarves' tomb does the Fellowship stumble across? Is it the tomb of Dwalin? Is it the tomb of Thorin? Is it the tomb of Balin? Or is it the tomb of Gloin?
Right, it's not the last one, that sounds wrong, but it's Gimli's like dad or uncle or granddad or something, isn't it? It's like a relative of his.
Yeah.
Oh, give me the first 3 again.
Dwalin, Thorin, or Balin?
Thorin.
That's incorrect.
No, Thorin, that's for Hobbit, isn't it?
Yeah. Chaz, do you want to take a stab at this one?
I'm going to get this wrong. I think it's Balin.
It is Balin. Well done. Yeah.
Okay.
So Balin, if you remember, the
Protector
Hobbit was
of Moria, isn't he?
Yeah, he was the one with the big long white beard that curled up at the end and the big nose. Gloin is actually Gimli's dad, and Balin is Gimli's cousin, and obviously Thorin is the ruler, the king under the mountain, or he was before he was slain. Here we go. Okay, so question 15 for Chaz. The Balrog that Gandalf slays is also known by which name? Is it Durin's Bane? Is it Longothrim? Is it Gothmog or Morgoth?
The first one.
Durin's Bane. That is correct. Nice one.
Morgoth is the evil dude, the
Yes.
evil angel. I forgot what they're called.
Yeah, he was the Dark Lord of the First Age,
Yeah.
and Sauron's master. He was, the ultimate sort of devil incarnate image of Tolkien's mythology.
He didn't harmonize with the song.
He did not.
The
That's
legend.
nice. That's some great
Yeah.
Silmarillion knowledge there, Chas. Well done. Yeah, Durin's Bane. Durin being the folk of Durin, the dwarves that resided in the mountains, and Bane being that bane on your life. Durin's Bane. Yeah, very well done.
One with the darkness.
I was born in it. And then last question, I'm going to throw this one over to Ben. How are Galadriel and Arwen related? So is Galadriel Arwen's aunt? Is Galadriel Arwen's great aunt? Is Galadriel Arwen's grandmother? Or is Galadriel not related to Arwen at all and I'm just chatting shit?
Who's Arwen?
That is the.
That's a good start.
She's the daughter of Elrond, so the one that falls in love with Aragorn.
But I thought that is Galadriel.
No, Galadriel's blonde hair. She's the one with the
Oh wait, where did
She's-
she come from?
Arryn.
Where'd
What
she
good-
come from?
Why don't you just take a guess?
Let's say they are not related, and you're chatting shit.
I'm not chatting shit. I'm afraid
Ah.
Galadriel is the grandmother of Arwen, which
Damn,
a lot of
she's
people
looking
don't
good.
know.
Arwen's the one that whispers all the time.
Yeah,
The one that's
she,
really
she
annoying.
gives really. I really don't like Arwen in
She's
the trilogy.
the like brownie head one that has the water ring, right?
Hmm.
Mm.
Okay.
Yeah,
Is it Liv Tyler?
yeah, it is. Yeah,
Yeah.
It's a daughter of Steve Tyler from Aerosmith. Is it Aerosmith? Yeah, that would have been very embarrassing if I got that wrong. Well, yeah, that was my quiz. I'm pretty safe to say Chaz got that one. 8 points and Ben on 4. There we go.
Hey, I'll take it.
What do I get for winning?
What are you getting, Chaz? My lifelong respect for your knowledge
Oh,
of
cheers, thank you.
Tolkien there. Yeah, it was really nice to actually write that quiz because I've been a massive fan of Tolkien for such a long time, and I'm actually in the process of trying to collect all the really nice illustrated editions. And I would say it's probably my favorite franchise. And sometimes when I go through a bit of a phase of like reading all about it and watching the films, I know in my heart that I actually like it more than Star Wars, which is saying a lot. That's a big thing to say.
Do you know, I think it hasn't been tainted by that, like, wanting to make it into a money-grabbing
Mhm.
thing. I mean, it is, isn't it? It's still a franchise, but it's not,
Yeah.
it doesn't feel like it's been tainted like Star Wars has.
Yeah, I mean, we'll have to see, won't we, when Amazon releases its new Lord of the
Yeah.
Rings series.
True.
But I mean, I'm largely excited for that anyway because it's going to be set during the Second Age, so we're going to get to see like a young Sauron crafting the rings, influencing and manipulating the Númenóreans. Hopefully, it ends on like the epic battle that we see at the Fellowship at the start of the Fellowship of the Ring.
That'd be cool.
Yeah, I think it would be cool.
We'll have to do a podcast on it, won't it?
Oh, absolutely,
When
yeah,
that comes out.
yeah. Subscribe, notification bell, please. Like,
Share, comment.
yeah, everything, all of the above. But I mean, what else is there to really talk about the Lord of the Rings other than just how fantastic it is?
Credit Howard Shaw for the soundtrack as well.
Absolutely, there's such an amazing, there's so many motifs in that trilogy that are just so subtle, and they just everything just comes together so well rounded and
Chef's kiss. Mwah.
yeah. Charlie, you and I actually went and did an all-nighter and watched the extended trilogy at the Prince Charles Cinema in London.
That was a marathon, to say the least.
Yeah, absolutely. We did our research before we went. I remember actually Googling like what food actually keeps you awake, because we were
Rather
like,
than
right,
caffeine.
yeah, like we can't go in there with like Starbucks and chocolate and popcorn because we're just gonna crash. So I remember vividly like just munching on sausage rolls and orange juice and fruit.
I remember falling asleep during the Two Towers.
Me too, yeah for like 10 minutes.
And then waking up and it being like halfway through the Return of the King, and I was like, oh, I've missed quite a lot here.
Yeah. I think I did quite well. I fell asleep for like maybe 10-20 minutes of the Two Towers, but I was like, I'm getting my money's worth. I want to watch all of it.
It's
I
tough,
want to really
though.
try.
'cause I
It
think
is.
The Two Towers dips a bit anyway for me as a
Mhm.
film. That is still great, but it doesn't carry the same as Fellowship and the Return of the King does.
Well, what I wrote for my reviews this week, and you can check all those out, listeners at home, on Letterboxd if you want to catch up with our reviews, is I said that the Fellowship of the Ring was, so magical and had this, has this real high fantasy element. There's so much magic going on. And I think I agree with you. Like, the Two Towers does dip away from that, but what I really like about the Two Towers is it's just a little bit more human, and just taps into more emotion, and you get that incredible performance from Andy Serkis as Gollum, and then you get one of the most, I think, the most incredible set piece of the entire trilogy, which is the Battle for Helm's Deep, which is just there's a great video essay by Nerdwriter on YouTube, so go and check that out if you're listening at home, on how that entire sequence of Helm's Deep is like a film within a film, because you have the hook and then the setup and then the MacGuffin,
Right.
and it's fantastic. You know, that arrow piercing the first Uruk-hai is like, you know, the what
Inciting
sets off the
incident.
plot. Yeah, that
Yeah.
exactly. Yeah, you've hit the nail on the head.
Hit the orc in the eye.
Yeah, between the armor where they're weakest. Yeah, so I just love that whole set piece. And actually, if you go and watch the extended edition, Ben, there's a really great bit where all the orcs are fleeing from Helm's Deep at the end, and they actually run into the Ents who come like.
Oh,
You know,
nice!
It's fantastic. It's kind of a weird bit in the film actually, because in the book, the Ents are a lot more magical than they are portrayed in the film. In the film, they're kind of portrayed as like slow talking and
wise,
you know, and yes, they do come to battle at the end, but they actually have a lot of magical power in the book. You know, for starters, they don't just sleep in the forest. Like, they have houses made out of trees, these gigantic houses with gigantic tables.
Isn't that like a little bit cannibalistic?
Cannibalistic,
yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. Well, you see, the thing is, you know, you've got trees, and then Ents aren't really trees. They're a different species somewhat. So trees are still not sentient. It's the
so
Ents
they just
that are like a different race.
enslaved
trees.
Yeah, pretty much, yeah. But no, they have these really magical powers, and obviously the water that they drink is magical. And there's this fantastic bit in the book where after they finished with Saruman, they actually arrive at Helm's Deep to sort of mop up the rest of the orcs, and they also help. I think I'm getting this right. I think they also help the Dunedain. So the Dunedain is the race of men that Aragorn belongs to, and in the film he's the only one, but in the book there's actually like a clan of them, kind of like Mandalorians, and the Ents actually help them cross the plains of Rohan, which is a very cool sequence. So I'm kind of sad that the Ents weren't given, and I think, going back to my point, that's what would have made Lord of the Rings that little bit more magical, as if we had seen some of that. They kind of leave a lot of that kind of magical forest stuff out of the films. You know, there's the old forest in the first book where Tom Bombadil lives, which just is completely left out, and then obviously all the magic of the Ents in the second book is completely left out as well.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe that's just, it's a victim of the time when they made the films, because 2001, 2, 3, CGI just, it wasn't like amazing, was it? So
yeah,
maybe they just decided not to try and attempt it because they couldn't do it amazingly well.
Gollum still completely holds up, though. He's still
the
most fantastic CGI for the day, and I cannot give Andy Serkis enough credit for how he's pioneered motion capture. And I think a few years ago he actually got the BAFTA, what is it, the honor, the special
Honorary
honors
award.
one. Yeah, he got that a couple of years ago for his services to motion capture, and how really it is performance, just because you don't see the actor's real face.
Is that the one where Gollum got it and they did the whole joke about the fact it was Gollum and not him?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, like Gollum like got the award. That was fantastic. Just another change from the book as well, which I actually kind of think works in a cinematic way, is the ending of the Two Towers is completely different. The ending of the Two Towers ends with Helm's Deep and the battle, and it's very cathartic, and this big crescendo. Gandalf arrives to save the day, but in the book, Tolkien wrote the stories as kind of like this anthology instead of it happening parallel, like chopping back and forth. So the Two Towers is comprised of 2 volumes, and they do all of the Rohan Helm's Deep, the trio side of things first, and then the second half of the book is Frodo and Sam. And the book actually ends on a cliffhanger where Frodo gets stabbed by the spider.
Oh, right.
Oh, I hate
that
spider.
third film, isn't it?
Yeah, so obviously that's in the third film, but the second book ends on Sam, like a cliffhanger, like Sam thinking that Frodo is dead, and then him being like, you know, I'm gonna rescue him from the tower. And you know, what a great cliffhanger that would have been to read, actually. But I see why they didn't do that for the film, because all 3 films, I think, do this really great job of like being really well rounded,
and you can watch them individually.
Absolutely,
and it makes sense as stories on their own, which is nice.
And I think, you know, that's obviously why it won Best Adapted Screenplay 3 years in a row. Absolutely. Yeah, Lord of the Rings, go and watch it, please. Ben, watch the extended editions, please. But I think let's talk about Parasite. We had a brief chat about Parasite before we started, and I really like it. I was so excited for you guys to watch it, and you actually both replied to me this afternoon saying, yeah, okay.
I mean, I wouldn't say meh. It was good, right? It was very good. And I can kind of see why, it's got a bit of an arty vibe to it, and you can see why it did so well. At the Oscars, winning Best Picture.
Mhm.
I think a little rundown on Parasite wouldn't be remiss. So it had 6 nominations, and it won 4 of them. So it won Best Picture, Director, International Feature, Original Screenplay, and it was nominated for Production Design and Editing. It was up against films like Ford versus Ferrari, The Irishman. That was
Scorsese.
that was Scorsese, wasn't it? And what's his name?
Robert De Niro, Joe
Robert
Pesci,
De Niro. Yeah,
Al
that one.
Pacino.
Jojo Rabbit, which I've not actually seen, which
It's
I've
incredible.
been told is really good. Yeah, Joker, obviously. Little Women was another massive film as well. That was
Really
quite
good. Have you seen it?
yeah.
great.
I've watched bits of it. Yeah. Marriage Story, 1917, which I thought was amazing. I loved
Mhm.
1917. That was an amazing film. And Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, which was obviously Tarantino, which was insane as
A
well.
massive letdown.
Which was better than Parasite.
I mean,
Oh,
it's Tarantino film. It's got its own things. But yeah, so for Parasite to win out of that lot is still pretty impressive. I mean, I know Charlie, you said you didn't think it should.
No, I think
why do you think that? Like looking at that roster for the year.
it's an incredible roster, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like, let's be real. But at the end of the day, it's just personal preference, isn't it? But I thought Marriage Story was a better film. I thought 1917 was a better film. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, better film, even though that's hotly debated.
Yeah, I think I don't know. I find it a bit coincidental that the first picture that Tarantino does post Harvey Weinstein being his producer is a massive letdown. And I don't know. It was a very safe film. There wasn't as many feet.
Still quite a few feet, though.
Yeah, but, there wasn't quite Pulp Fiction levels of feet.
I thought you were I thought you were saying features, and you just cut yourself off short.
Yeah, no.
And then I realized, nope, it's
Just feet.
Tarantino.
Yeah, no, I was so excited for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I actually managed to catch it at the IMAX in Manchester, and I remember just being insanely bored. And I was so excited for the end. I really, this sounds really bad, but I was so excited to see Sharon Tate get stabbed by Marilyn Manson's cult. And then obviously Tarantino pulls his classic what if subvert, and none of that happened. And it was a lot of build up for a lot of nothing. In my opinion,
I thought it's so funny. That ending was hilarious to me.
With the flamethrower.
It's so amazing. Yeah. Maybe it's because I'm a massive 60s nerd and I just love the whole vibe of it. And the soundtrack was incredible. The set design and everything.
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe it's just I really like the 60s.
If I was to nominate another film apart from Parasite, say if Parasite didn't exist and I had to pick one for Best Picture, I think I would have gone with probably 1917 or Marriage Story for sure. The Irishman I really love. I've seen that a few times. It's long, but it's such an homage to basically all of Scorsese's work.
And New Hollywood, which we'll be discussing shortly.
Sure, yeah, absolutely, yeah, Midnight Cowboy for sure. Yeah, so it was such a great year, and I think that's why I'm really happy for Parasite, because looking at that lineup for Best Picture, for a small, for a budget international feature, to not only win Best Director and Best International Feature, which was kind of a given based on how well it did at Cannes Film Festival, but then to surprise everyone and win the Best Picture, being the first foreign film to take Best Picture, it is pretty incredible.
Oh yeah, you can't take that away from it. Like it's a great film. Like it's just for me, it didn't strike a chord with me like the other films.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, I think it was. So a bit more info on Parasite, and for our listeners, it had a budget of 15 million, and it made about 258 million at box office, which is, I mean, what's that? Over 1,000% profit, on the budget. It's pretty nuts.
You consider what the budget would have been for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Exactly.
Like,
Probably would
yeah,
have been about 258 million to make
yeah,
that. So, yeah, it's very impressive what it did. I think as a film, I enjoyed it. I think it definitely, with the films, you want to be intrigued and interested the whole way through. I think with this film, I don't know whether or not maybe it was trying to be too hard hitting. Like you said, Charlie, I agree with you. I don't think it's subtle. Like, I mean, it was praised for being quite subtle, but for me, it was kind of ramming it down my throat. And
yeah.
whilst I
It was
didn't
very on the
necessarily,
nose.
yeah, very, very on the nose, and I liked that. I liked what it was talking about. I liked the conversation it had, but it didn't. It almost like was too jarring for me to really kind of forget that I was watching the film. I was just kind of sitting there thinking, I'm waiting for this to kick on now. I'm waiting for the next scene of the film. So that kind of like not ruined it, but it definitely kind of jaded it slightly. But saying that, I did think it was an absolutely nuts film, and it was very entertaining at the end, and definitely put the thriller into it. It was
It's very
great.
high octane.
Yeah,
Like,
it just went to crazy at the end, didn't
yeah,
it?
I actually really like the sort of the homages to Alfred Hitchcock throughout the film. If you notice them, I think for me, I think I agree with you. The sort of the class divide subtext was essentially text instead of subtext, but
yeah,
I didn't mind that. I think the first time I watched it, I went in without any kind of knowledge, and you guys, this is the first time you've watched it, whereas for me, it's the third. And so I've begun to notice some of the other things, once I've gotten past that kind of very on the nose class divide subtext. And one of the things, there's several nods to Alfred Hitchcock, which I really like, the way that stairs are used as a motif.
mm.
And the voyeurism is used as characters watch scenes through like the windows. I think it's like something like 13 or 14 times that characters are watching things happen through a window.
Oh, cool.
Like the first shot in the film
Yeah, yeah.
is the window, and I just really love that. And then also there is a very obvious, again, kind of on the nose, there's a glimpse of an Alfred Hitchcock DVD collection on the shelf in the Park's home.
Oh wow, that's
So
cool.
yeah, definitely a lot of Hitchcock, and I thought you'd like to know that because you're a massive fan of
Yeah,
Hitchcock. And
I suppose at the end with the knife, Psycho, isn't it?
yeah, absolutely. And I think the thing you've got to get past with Parasite is that for a small budget international film, I think it had to be loud and obvious to get any kind of attention from like Western viewers. Imagine, so first of all, you've got that kind of subtle mental block of, oh, I've got to read subtitles because it's in a different language. So I kind of feel like to appeal to a wider audience, it had to keep its story relatively obvious and, like you said, on the nose and simple, and appeal as like this Shakespearean tragedy, which, Shakespeare's been translated into hundreds of languages around the world and is adored by millions. And that worked because, Shakespeare was writing relatively simple tragedies and relatively simple comedies, but layering them with subtext and linguistic charm. And I think, I'm not saying that Bong Joon is this Shakespearean director. I'm not saying that at all. But I think to take a small story like that and to make it, this worldwide sensation, it had to be loud and it had to be noisy and it had to just be quite obvious. And I like that. And I think once you get past that and you watch the film a second or third time, you start to notice some of the things that you can tell were more thoughtful subtexts, or like the cinematography, for example, that voyeurism that I just pardon me, that I just talked about. And also the cinematography, like my favorite bit is when it's raining and they're leaving the house after the Park family come back from camping, and the whole time they're literally just going down, like they're walking down a road or down the stairs or down a tunnel. And that to me is so visually poetic that they go from right on top of the hill, obviously, the rich house, and they go all the way down to their basement house. And I just I love seeing that. That's my favorite bit in the film. Just no lines, no hardly a soundtrack in the background, just the rain and them having to descend into where they, depending on what side you're on, where they belong. So
Jeez.
yeah, I mean, come on, they're not the nicest people. That what they're doing is terrible.
Yeah, it definitely puts the power. Like I was saying to Charlie earlier, just before we started, it was only until after the film ended that I realized why it was called Parasite. Is because they were being parasites. They were living off other people's successes, and they were actually putting at the cost of other people as well. They made victims of not only the family, but they made victims of everyone that the family hired and was working for them by getting them out of the way. It's some of the quotes. Honestly, the internet is just a wonderful place, isn't it? And some of the reviews and the quotes about this film are just hilarious. Like the couple that really struck a chord with me that just are so correct for this film. The Guardian said. Described it as delicious cruelty, which very much is quite on the nose for how the film is. It's just bizarre, and there's no such thing as plot armor in that film, which I quite liked. It kept it flat, it kept it fresh, and in the words of Bong Joon-ho, the director, he was like, "It's cruel and sad," and he was just trying to be real and he was trying to be honest. Now, obviously, there's some artistic license there, but yeah, it definitely conveys that, which I think was impressive. It's nice to see a film that's hard hitting. Do you know what I mean? Rather than pulling punches.
I really like that. I think that also goes back to my point about him wanting to make the film as international as possible. Honesty is such a universal language, and the film is very real and very honest with the audience, and it's not trying. It doesn't rely on exposition and everything, which with a bunch of subtitles could be quite hard and quite boring. So yeah, I like that one.
So every time I watch a film, I sort of go through the letterbox reviews just because some of them are quite witty, or you get one that's literally like a university essay. But one of my favourites for this one was by a guy called Matt Singer, and it just says another bong hit.
That's incredible.
So yeah, if you're ever bored, look through the letterbox reviews because it's a good time.
We should do a game where we look at the best review and look at reviews and try and guess the film from the review. I think that'd be
I
see a lot of YouTubers do that, and that's quite good. It's actually the highest rated film on Letterboxd.
Really?
Parasite is, yeah, the highest rated narrative film, that is.
Wow.
Yeah, if you look at any list on Letterboxd and you go through the filters or order them, it's always Parasite at the top. It's amazing.
Wow.
Yeah. I've actually got a really nice quote from the director himself here, and I think this kind of sums up how great it is, in my opinion. Is that his statement on the film is that for people of different circumstances to live together in the same space is not easy, and it's increasingly the case in this sad world that the humane relationships based on coexistence or symbiosis cannot hold, and one group is pushed into a parasitic relationship with the other, and in the midst of such a world, who can point their finger at a struggling family locked in a fight for survival and call them parasites? It's not that they were parasites from the start. They're our neighbors, our friends, our colleagues, who have merely been pushed to the edge of the precipice. And as a depiction of ordinary people who fall into an unavoidable commotion, this film is a comedy without clowns, a tragedy without villains, all leading to a violent tangle and a headlong plunge down the stairs. And you're all invited to this unstoppable, fierce tragicomedy. And I really like that as a summation of the film. I think it's really greatly acted as well. The performances are fantastic, especially when things start to get heated, when the basement comes into play as well.
Yeah. Especially when they go back to their basement apartment. I love that when they're all wwading through the water. That must have been hard to film.
Oh yeah, and she's just sitting on the toilet, the toilet's just spewing out shit. She's just done. She's like, yeah.
She was one of my favorite characters. The sister.
Yeah,
I really, really liked her.
I also really liked the stone that was gifted to them at the start of the film.
I put even that as a character.
Yeah, even that as a character.
The stone's performance. Oh my god,
it was fantastic. Just didn't move a muscle. What? Honestly, what focus and dedication that
method
stone
acting
had.
there.
It was actually Daniel Day-Lewis. He became a stone. But yeah, no, the scholar stone is actually meant to represent both the hope for upward social mobility, sort of it's supposed to represent, if we're talking in Western terms, the American dream. But because it's a really heavy stone, it's also supposed to represent the burden of carrying that hope, to the point where it literally is used then to bash Ki-Woo's skull in.
Spoilers.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yeah, spoilers, yeah. After it gives away his location, and before the sequence at the party, the stone is also weirdly, the stone floats in the sewage
Yeah.
water, suggesting in that scene that it's fake and hollow and cannot be used to dream for a better life. So I think it's a great little MacGuffin there.
MacGuffin, that's such a good word.
I know, it's great, isn't it? It's great.
So, obviously, Parasite is a foreign language film, and the next film we're going to look at, Midnight Cowboy, is from the New Hollywood movement that was around in like the late 60s, early 70s, which had a lot of influence from foreign language cinema at the time. We were talking like French New Wave.
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
I'm quite familiar with French New Wave, but New Hollywood, I didn't know that had kind of been like stemmed from it. I'm not too sure what New Hollywood is. If you want to give me a rundown on that.
Okay, right. So yes, it's a film movement like late 60s, and it's films like all the classics that we would know as classics. So it's like Bonnie and Clyde, The Graduate, 2001, Easy Rider, Godfather, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest,
Oh, really? Nice.
even to like Jaws, Jurassic Park, Star Wars. They'd all be like New Hollywood.
Yeah.
And basically it's like use the counterculture as like a basis to go against the classic system of Hollywood and sort of reinvent itself as an underground movement, but with Hollywood budget sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So would you argue that like Hollywood was willing to invest in opinions that, say, like in the golden age, it didn't want, like on like the big screen? Like, I mean, for one, watching the film this afternoon, I can't imagine Hollywood ever wanting to give money in the golden age to a film that's kind of largely concerned, or like it depicts homosexuality in the way that this film does. But why don't you give us a breakdown of the film for the people at home who haven't seen it yet?
Okay, so it follows Joe Buck, who is a Texan sort of cowboy or wannabe cowboy who moves to New York City in the hope of becoming a hustler for rich, young females.
Mm-hmm.
And he has this ideology that because he's got this cowboy aesthetic, they're going to want to pay lots of money to have sex with him, essentially.
Yeah.
And then he meets Ratso, who's like a low-life, sort of half-homeless con man, essentially, who's played by Dustin Hoffman. And it's just about their relationship together, sexual and otherwise, which we'll talk about in a bit, I suppose.
Well, I mean, we can talk about it right now. I got a big vibe that that both of the characters were gay in the film. Like they're hiding it, both in the closet, if that's a term that's appropriate to use nowadays. What I don't know. What did you think, Ben? Did you watch it?
I didn't manage to finish it. I think you can definitely read those vibes from it, But then it's the question. I think that's then leads into the kind of are they just really comfortable with each other and able to behave in that way, or is it, or did maybe it's kind of 60s America, isn't it? I'm not really good. I've not really seen too many films from that period, and I'm not really too versed up on what it might look like if it was kind of that, because obviously at that time it's still quite it's a hugely negative thing to
Still quite illegal, wasn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So it's kind of it's hard to tell, isn't it? And I think we know that the actors are straight, and so there's no like kind of that leaking through, So I don't know. Maybe they were trying to build that bond between the two characters on purpose to a point where we would just see them as the two. Yeah, it's a tricky one because like I said, does it lead into the kind of the question of do two male characters on the same screen, if they get on really well and they're really connected, are they gay or are they just friends? Like, for example, I would compare it to. So I'm watching this TV program at the minute on Netflix. It's about these three women, just like kind of, and their lives in New York. But you know,
Is that the Bold Type?
yeah, it is the Bold
Oh,
Type.
what a great show!
Oh my god, it's amazing.
I'm
I
on
mean,
season 4.
yeah, me too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Screw the rest of the Oscars. We're talking about the Bold Type now.
Yeah.
No, the Bold Type is honestly, it's brilliant. It breaks down so many things, and it tackles so many issues, and it's great for that. But there's so many scenes where there's straight actors and, well, not straight actors, straight characters, kind of almost in intimate contact, you know, and they have such a close relationship. But I never really question, oh, they must be gay for each other, or they might be gay for each other. So maybe it's kind of not double standards here, but you know what I mean? You know what I'm getting for? I'm like, can they just be really good friends without us having to ask that question? But at the same time, you know, it is worth asking.
I think
Yeah.
it's a way of putting that idea into people's minds when watching without explicitly saying it, which obviously they couldn't at the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think
that's a good point.
One of the strengths of the new wave was putting forward what would be then controversial opinions, but masquerading them in an acceptable format.
That to me really reminds me of French New Wave, which, you know, something that I like to think I'm a bit familiar with. But you've got in the notes here that it wasn't just French New Wave style of film that made that kind of storytelling possible. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit, because I find that really, really interesting. Less so in the movie itself, but more about, you know, how a movie like that was. Because that's the thing, I was really surprised watching. I was like, this 1969 film. I'm like, okay, it's going to be a bit old fashioned in places, and it's largely going to play it safe. But I was really surprised at how kind of avant garde it was.
Yeah,
I suppose that's the point. I don't know if you want to talk about that a bit.
Yeah, I read an essay by a guy called Gary Needham, who said that, all right, foreign language film of the time influenced New Hollywood, but it's also underground cinema, like in the USA. So think like Andy Warhol, that sort of vibe, who like actually released a film in 1965 called My Hustler, which is about a gay hustler in New York City. So it's pretty much a mirror of the same film. And there's a whole party scene in Midnight Cowboy, isn't there? That is meant to imitate the Factory, which is Andy Warhol's sort of art installation place that he did all his stuff in the 60s. And he was actually asked to like be the filmmaker in that scene. So it would have been really cool to actually see that. But they sent over loads of his like circle of friends to be actors in it. So it's a weird one that like this underground cinema in America, it obviously had its influences on it, but when asked to be a part of it, they question the motives of what Hollywood is going to do for their movement.
It's like stepping on their own shoes, really, isn't it?
That's it, moving in on their territory sort of thing.
Yeah. And of course it was an adaptation as well, so you have that to sort of think about, you know.
Yeah.
Why adapt a novel like that as part of this, you know, this new Hollywood, if you're not going to really commit to the kind of things that it wanted to say? I don't know. I'm in two minds about it.
The new Hollywood thing is like, is it progressing Hollywood, or is it just exploiting underground cinema and foreign language film to create more profit? It's a really weird point of film history as to whether it's inventive or if it's just exploiting.
I mean, if it is the latter, it obviously worked because Midnight Cowboy, you know, 7 nominations, won 3, took home Best Picture, Best Adapted Screenplay, and Best Director as well. It was up against Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, which is a really great film.
Yeah.
I would say, you know, a very strong contender for Best Picture there. Absolutely. I tell you what, though, it reminded me of a couple things. So one, it obviously kind of struck me as a new wave film. Did not expect that for a kind of 60s film.
Yeah.
Second thing it reminded me of was, you're gonna laugh at this, it really reminded me of The Room.
Right.
I mean, you know The Room, like that god awful film, cult classic. Just for the performances were great, but really felt hyper real performance. The editing also kind of reminded me, and I kind of get the sense that, you know, who's the guy who directed The Room again? I always forget his name.
Tommy Wiseau.
Yeah, I get the sense that he watched Midnight Cowboy and was like, yeah, that's it. I'm going to do a film about that. And yeah, so it really reminded me of that. And then another thing that it reminded me of, which I guess I'm not sure if it's part of any kind of wave, but Fight Club as well, you know, disguising homosexuality in a film, but not really ever. I don't know, Fight Club never really tackles it on the nose, you know, in the way that Parasite tackles class division on the nose.
Yeah.
But Fight Club is just weird.
Fight Club is amazing.
Yeah, no, it's sick.
Yeah,
but it's weird.
It is, yeah. But I actually read a review somewhere that said Fight Club is the straightest, gayest film ever.
Yeah.
And I just thought, yeah, and that it really reminded me of that review when I was watching this film, you know. But and then the third thing that it really reminded me of, and this kind of ruined the film for me, is that I could not unpicture Peter Griffin.
I'm walking here.
Yeah, no, yeah, well, just because of Dustin Hoffman's entire performance and his voice. He's like, oh yeah, how you doing? Yeah, we're gonna be hushlers. I'm gonna be a hustler. Yeah, and I was just like, it's just Peter Griffin, isn't it? So that unfortunately kind of spoiled it a little bit. And I'm not sure if Family Guy have ever done a spoof of it, but they absolutely should, because you know, I can imagine Quagmire being in like the cowboy outfit.
Oh no!
And then Peter being, you know, a bit of a fun fact here about the film. The film was rated X, which in the United States at the time meant that no one under 17 could be admitted. 17 and under, so basically 18 plus. That was upon its release in 1969, but the film actually invented the R rating classification, which, you know, is used for every film that's above kind of a PG now. Basically, the film was released with X, but it was one of the many, the few X films that got shown in mainstream cinema, because X was usually reserved for pornographic films. So the film kind of actually became associated with hardcore sex films, and it really damaged its kind of spread, you know, its distribution. So it took a while, but like 2 years later in 1971, they were like, okay, well, clearly with this new Hollywood thing, we've got a lot of films that are coming out that are going to be a lot more sexual and talk about a lot of, at the time, illegal things, like, again, at the time, homosexuality. So they were like, okay, here's a new rating. Here's the R rating, which means if you're under 17, you've got to be with a parent. So actually, to this day, Midnight Cowboy is the only X-rated film to win Best Picture, or to be shown on network television, or to be screened for a US president. So Richard Nixon went to see it at the premiere. Wow. And it was X-rated. So yeah, there we go. I know that Dustin Hoffman was heavily warned not to do the film because it would, you know, break his career. So it would ruin his career, you know, to play this really, you know, he was this Hollywood like fun man, you know, and he had done quite nice romantic things, and he obviously done The Graduate, and then to do something like this where he played this hustler. During those days, agents had a lot of control over their actors. You know, they would threaten their clients and say, you know, if you do this film, I'm not going to be your agent. And I think that was the case for Dustin Hoffman, because he was really warned not to do the film, and his agent was like, you know, I've made you famous. If you do this film, it's going to ruin everything, and I'm not going to be your agent anymore. And he did it anyway, and
it's mental.
I'm glad he did.
Yeah, it's put as one of his best performances now.
Yeah,
like yeah,
really, and I think you find that a lot in that era. You know, look at Audrey Hepburn. She was, Marilyn Monroe was originally going to play the role in Breakfast at Tiffany's, but didn't.
Yeah,
because she was warned by her agent, and then along comes Audrey Hepburn, and it becomes iconic. You know, and that line, Dustin Hoffman's line, the unscripted bit where the taxi, here. You know, I'm walking here. How famous is so that good. Now because of that?
It's,
you know,
everywhere.
It's everywhere.
One of my favorite lines from the whole film was, "Death is like heroin," and then she's like, "I've not tried death, but I've tried heroin." Such a good line.
That's fantastic.
It's such a good line.
Yeah,
I love it.
Yeah, there's a quote here in the notes. Midnight Cowboy is one of the films that reveals the seams in the fabric of an America that is directionless and crumbling and falling apart. And Midnight Cowboy bravely evokes the ongoing search for America that defined the 1960s. And the more I think about it, the more I'm reminded of Adam Curtis, Can't Get You Out of My Head.
Yeah.
You know, the first couple of episodes of that documentary. Go check out our podcast on that, by the way, because that's I'm very proud of that one. It was a great discussion.
Nice plug. I like it.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, so the first couple of episodes of that documentary dealt with that kind of individualism of America during the 1960s, and I really get that sense that Joe embodies that in Midnight Cowboy. You know, you can search all you want for that kind of big American dream, or that, you know, and he dreams and he hears on the radio about how New York is so friendly, and then when he gets there, it's
like
so cold and it's the opposite. And then he meets someone who's essentially identical to him. You know, Dustin Hoffman's character, he's thinking of Florida in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, but if you've looked at Florida on Google, it's not the best, you know. Sorry for anyone who's listening from Florida, but, you know.
Because we definitely have listeners from Florida.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's interesting. No, you make an interesting point, because it's when it's, you know, you use the words American dream, it's a term that's thrown around a lot, and you know, when he at the start of the film, you know, he's like kind of a massive grin on his face, like striding, you know, head and shoulders above everyone, like through the crowd, and he's got his big hat on, and you know, and then like it's one of the quite early on in the film, isn't it, where Dustin Hoffman's character is just like, nobody goes for that anymore. Like,
yeah.
Why are you still a cowboy? Like, you know, that's not going to work. And it's like, it's kind of popping that bubble. And, you know, we're talking about popping the American bubble in the 60s. You know, even today, you know, it's still, you know, people aiming for that American dream. And it's, you know, what is the American dream is still, I think, a very topical question for today.
It's so ingrained in our culture, though, isn't it? Like,
massively.
Like, look at John Steinbeck. All his books are about the fraud of the American dream, I suppose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a really interesting genre that I like. That I really enjoy it when a film explores that subtext, even if it's something like fantasy, you know, or something that's sci-fi. Like look at The Matrix.
Yeah,
there's elements of that in there as well, looking for the real world.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, not even like, doesn't even have to be fantasy. Another thing I watched was I watched that college scandal documentary that's on Netflix at the minute.
Mm-hmm.
You know, about the rich people paying to get into the Ivy League, like the top 25 colleges. Like, you know, it's, and the question they ask in the documentary is, well, why are the rich? You know, why are the rich trying to send their kids to these top 2% colleges? It's just because, you know, it's that perpetuation of that society and that American dream. You know, that you have to go to the best college, and the prestige you get from that then sets you up for the rest of life. It's like, actually no, it's 25 colleges out of 3,000. You know, get real. It's just nuts. But yeah, sorry to cut you off on that one, but I just
no, that's okay. No, speaking of scandals, our last film this week, one of my favorites that's on the entire roster, Citizen 4, 87th Academy Awards, was nominated only for documentary feature, but it surely took it home, and it was up against other documentaries like Finding Vivian Maier, Last Days in Vietnam, The Salt of the Earth, and Virunga. Never seen any of them, never heard any of them, but we're going to talk about Citizen 4. I'm sure they're all great if they got nominated for Academy Awards. Chaz, you watched this a while ago?
Yeah, I think I watched it with you, actually. Did I? Or did we watch the one, the narrative version? I forgot what that's called.
Snowden.
Oh, yeah, of course it is.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah. Yeah, I think we watched it together when you know, we were both in university and we thought we were enlightened.
I mean, it gives me the same fear that Can't Get It On My Head give me.
Yeah. Also reminds me, if you haven't seen that on Netflix, The Social Dilemma.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah, very similar. Although I feel like Social Dilemma is a spiritual successor to this documentary, in that this documentary, Citizen 4, raises the issue and explored it, and then The Social Dilemma was like, yeah, the issue hasn't gone away and governments are admitting it, but what are you going to do about it now?
I feel the Citizen 4 like gave me the fear, and nothing after that is going to scare me as much.
Yeah.
The Social Dilemma, I was like, yeah, this is old news. Like, I know about it, which is horrible.
Yeah.
Like, I shouldn't think like that, but that's sort of how news cycle works, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. So if you're not familiar, Citizen 4 is an Academy Award-winning documentary. It's by filmmaker Laura Portras, and she was creating a series of documentaries looking at the state of America and the rest of the Western world in the wake of the September 11 attacks. The other two in the trilogy are My Country from 2006, and then The Oath in 2010. I haven't seen those two, but I definitely should. The documentary focuses on a young man called Edward Snowden, who's, it's quite a popular name now. I feel like a lot of people know who Edward Snowden are when you talk to them. He was an employee for the NSA, and he had a really, really successful career spanning several major security agencies in the United States, like CIA. He also worked for Dell, Booz Allen Hamilton. And throughout the documentary, you see essentially this scandal unfolding. It starts with Edward contacting Laura under the name of Citizen 4. And in his emails, he informs Laura of the abhorrent wiretapping practices of the NSA and other intelligence agencies. And the documentary is a really visceral unfolding of events. Laura travels to Hong Kong with a journalist from The Guardian, quite a popular one, Glenn Greenwald. He's no longer with The Guardian, but he's got a great Twitter account if you want to follow him. And he also is also joined by intelligence reporter Ewan McCaskill. And they all meet with Snowden in his hotel room in Hong Kong, and they publicly leak confidential information surrounding these wiretapping practices. And the rest of the documentary is just this huge chain of destruction caused by Snowden for these security agencies. And we see like hearings and tribunals and on-air reports. And I would say that the largest shock moment in the documentary are the revelations that the NSA and other security agencies around the world were using softwares like Xkeyscore and Mammoth. And if you don't know what those are, Edward Snowden in his TV interview basically said the Xkeyscore is, you could read anyone's email in the world as long as you've got their email address. You can go on any website, watch traffic from it, any computer. You can watch it, a laptop that you're tracking. You can follow it. You can tag individuals. He then went on to say, let's say you work at a major German corporation and you want to access that network. You can track usernames on a website, on a forum, or track your real name. You can track associations. It was this huge spider's web. And yeah, and that's pretty much it. And the documentary itself was released over a year after the events happened in 2013. It was critical acclaim. It's got 88 on Metacritic. It's got 96 on Rotten Tomatoes, and obviously Academy Award for Best Documentary, which it later won. That's why we're talking about it now. I mean, Chaz, from what you remember of it, do you want to talk about it? You said it gave you the fear.
I think it's the best portrayal of paranoia I've ever seen. It captures it so well. There's that moment when he's like, it's just him and Laura like in the hotel room, and I think like the phone rings or something, and they both just sort of stand there like not saying a word, and I think they just sort of let the phone ring out, and it's like we like can't tell anyone anything. Like you can't trust anyone.
Yeah,
and it's just I can't imagine how that must have felt to actually have had to have done it. It's just unreal to have lived through it.
It must have been so like heart-wrenching. Not heart-wrenching. What's the word? Like, the amount of heart attacks you must have felt, filming that film. It's I've got a quote here, saying that it's pervasive global surveillance, and the documentary scenes unfold in courtrooms, hearings, and yet it's not so much those big moments, but the Laura's direction. It's a very anarchistic direction, and so when those small moments, when he's combing his hair in the mirror, getting ready to escape and leave, and he's putting a hat on so he looks different. And when the fire alarm goes off, all those little moments, I love that she kept those in the film.
It's like what was that film? This Is Not a Film, when they just let the camera roll. Like they just left it, like when he leaves it on the table in that film. She does sort of a similar thing where she doesn't ask any questions. She doesn't urge Snowden to really say anything.
Yeah,
she just captures him in the moment, and it's a real. It's not a pleasure to watch. It's honest, I think, is what.
Yeah. There's a really great. Now that you said that, there's actually a really good quote from Catherine Shoal she's from Guardian Film, obviously the Guardian loves this film. Like,
yeah, obviously, yeah.
Obviously, because they were the ones that leaked it. But it was interesting that you compared it to This Is Not a Film, because Catherine actually says in her review that it reminded her a lot of Jafar Panahi's film, which he shot with this film.
It's not a film. Sorry.
Which is not a film. He's under house arrest. It's really claustrophobic, and he's using that difficulty to create like a piece of art. And she then goes on to say that Citizen 4 is perhaps a little bit less enjoyable than that film because the central subject cracks less. So she was essentially saying that, Panahi showed emotion, whereas Snowden was so unflappable. Like, he was very so well composed all the way through, like a real gentleman. His whole life is just crumbling around him, and he'll never be able to see his parents again. And he's going to have to, run off to Moscow, and he's just so composed throughout. And I really like how Laura captures that.
I feel like we can relate to Snowden more as well. Like, the issue affects us all, rather than Panahi's situation. It's his personal struggle, isn't it? Rather than the global society being watched, essentially. Is there a reason why he called himself Citizen 4? Is there a...
Yes. So he used the number 4 because he believed that there was three whistleblowers who exposed the NSA's mass surveillance before him, either decades or years before. And that was Thomas Drake, William Binney, and J. Kirk Weeb. And they all tried to expose the NSA's mass surveillance. So in his mind, they were numbers 1 to 3.
Right.
So he kind of came up with this idea that, I'm the 4th person to try and bring the NSA down and to stop this. And so that's why he took the name Citizen 4. And obviously Laura liked that enough. They were contacting for months before they met through encrypted emails, and they built up quite a nice rapport. So I think those are my favorite moments in the documentary, is when it's just those two, because you can tell that when Glenn Greenwald and Ewan McCaskill are in the room interviewing him, it's very bombarding questions, and where are you from, and why are you doing this, and have you
very
thought about your
journalistic
family, and exactly. Whereas there's actually a nice moment in the Oliver Stone movie, the adaptation of the documentary.
Oh, is it Oliver Stone?
Yeah. So
that makes me like it a little less.
Yeah, but it's the same as looking at what did we look at? Woody Allen, Midnight in Paris.
Yeah,
you may not like a director, but it's a good film.
Yeah.
So what I was trying to say was those moments where it's just those two, especially if you watch the dramatization. It's just called Snowden. It's got Joseph Gordon-Levitt in the role as Edward Snowden. There's a moment where they're bombarding all those questions, and then Laura actually stops the camera and says, just why don't you let me handle this? Just put your pens down. And then she starts rolling the camera, and then she records that very famous bit where he's like, "Oh, my name's Edward Snowden. I'm 27. I'm from this place, and I've worked for these people." And instead of those bombarding journalistic questions, so I really like those when it's just those two. Even though you never actually see Laura in the documentary, she's always just behind the camera. She's like this omniscient, this observer.
I feel like you still get to know her though, like on quite a deep level.
Yeah, I think through it's amazing when you can tell a person's personality through the way that they hold a camera and by what they capture and what they decide to keep in a film.
I think that's every cinematographer's dream, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
And very few get to actually sort of do it.
Like I can always tell when it's Roger Deakins, for example. I know his trademarks well enough now. I've seen enough of his films, and there's there's personality in that. And I feel like, considering this was the first time that I'd ever seen a piece of Laura's work, for me to get that personality through on the first watch is it's really incredible. And that's why I think it transcends a lot of documentary film for me, because it's such a personal thing, and it's so visceral, and it feels like a narrative. It feels like it didn't happen.
Yeah.
It feels like it's such a expertly performed piece of narrative drama. but it's not. It's so real, and I think that's what scares me about it, really. And I think, yeah, so her distinctive ability to get close to her subjects is it's unique to her style. And I've actually got a quote from her here where she explains that she likes to work with people that she can spend time with, and she likes to surrender to that. And as I was saying, in several scenes, she lingers alone in the room with Snowden. There's a different tone of the film emerges, and during these moments, that rapid fire emergency of their strategizing sessions is completely dissipated by daily regime. She keeps the camera rolling, and as he's washing his face or brushing his teeth or lounging on his bed or talking to his girlfriend. And I like how she uses those opportunities to investigate how Snowden is emotionally grappling with these conditions. Because I like it. The only time you ever really hear her talk is when she's asking personal questions, like "How do you feel?" or "Are you nervous?" And and Snowden responds that it's an unusual feeling, not knowing what's going to happen day to day, and it's scary. So I definitely I applaud the personal moments in the film. For me, I think they're the favorite. Definitely when they're in the hotel room together, that's my favorite bit.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Oh, so that's awesome to hear you guys talking about Season 4. I'm definitely going to have to put that on my personal watch list going forward. So please check out that film if you haven't already, guys. If you enjoyed our podcast this week, please make sure to give us a like, a follow, hit that bell for notifications. It would mean the world to us, and you would find out about our new podcasts earlier rather than later. So next week, we have a great selection of films coming your way that we're going to talk about next Sunday. We're going to be talking about Chaplin, No Country for Old Men, Good Will Hunting, and Fantastic Mr. Fox.
I'm so excited for Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, it's going to be good.
Oh, yeah.
So that's it for this week. We've found out that Joe is a humongous nerd about Tolkien. Charlie can no longer claim to be a film student until he's brushed up on his new Hollywood. And, and that's it for us. So have a great week, everyone, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys.
cheers.
Turn on that bell. Turn on them bells, hun.
Oh, that's going at the end. That's going at the end.
Damn it.